In the vast lonely silence of the American Southwest, a nightmare walks among us. Not a monster of fiction, but a malevolent entity born from the deepest, most secret parts of ancient folklore. It can wear the skin of a coyote or the face of your own loved one. We are talking about the Skinwalker. For generations, stories of this creature have been passed down in hushed whispers. But before we dive into the terrifying lore and the chilling accounts of those who have seen them, we must start with the necessary truth. This is a sacred yet deeply feared part of Navajo culture. Out of respect for the traditions, we will be discussing the popularized interpretations and documented accounts. In Navajo culture, it is often taboo to even speak the name. We approach this subject with sensitivity. The origin and transformation. So what is a skinwalker? The name comes from the Navajo term Yinalushi, which translates roughly to, by means of it, he goes on all fours. It is a human who has corrupted their spiritual power for the darkest of evils. And how does a person become one of these terrifying shapeshifters, you may ask? By committing an act of profound evil. The most common lore states that to complete their dark initiation and gain their power, a person must kill a close family member, such as a sibling. This heinous act grants them the ability to transform. They don't just change into an animal either. They wear the skin or pelt of the animal they transform into, which is why it is a major taboo in Navajo culture to wear the pelts of predatory animals like wolves or coyotes. Skinwalkers choose their forms strategically. The stealth of a coyote, the strength of a bear, the speed of a wolf. They are often seen as these animals, but with one key unnatural detail: their eyes. Eyewitnesses often describe them as having unnaturally large, glowing, or deeply human eyes, even in animal form, or terrifyingly animalistic eyes when briefly seen in a human-like state. Powers and traits. They are said to possess incredible supernatural abilities, such as mimicry. They are masters of sound. Skinwalkers reportedly mimic human voices, crying babies, or animal distress calls to lure victims out of their homes. This is a crucial element in many accounts. Speed and agility. When seen, their movements are described as impossibly fast or distorted, running at speeds a human or normal animal couldn't sustain, or moving with a jerky, unnatural gait. Some accounts even say that they can run as fast as a car. Mind control and possession. The lore suggests they can influence the minds of people, causing fear or confusion. Some tales even say they can possess living animals or people to do their bidding. The tap. A classic sign of a skinwalker nearby is the unnerving sound of tapping or scratching at windows or doors, especially in isolated locations. They test the defenses, waiting for an opportunity. The entire purpose of a skinwalker is malevolence, to inflict harm, cause sickness, death, and misfortune for their own dark gain. They represent the ultimate spiritual corruption. The lore is terrifying enough, but the most unsettling aspect of the Skinwalker legend is the sheer volume of first-hand accounts. These are not just ghost stories. They are encounters that share chillingly specific, consistent details. Let's dive into our first account. Account 1. The Truck Follower. The year was late 1990s. A man who wished to remain anonymous was driving late one night on a deserted stretch of road near the Navajo Reservation in Arizona. His headlights cut through the heavy darkness. He noticed a figure on the side of the road, a large coyote or wolf. It was unsettlingly big. As he passed, the creature began to run parallel to his truck. He glanced down at his speedometer, 60 miles per hour. Thinking it was a fluke, he accelerated, pushing the truck to 80 miles per hour. He checked his side mirror. The wolf was still there, effortlessly pacing him, its silhouette keeping perfect time with the vehicle. He panicked and slammed the gas pedal to the floor, reaching nearly 100 miles per hour. The truck rattled, but in his mirror, the creature was still running beside him, now with an added terrifying detail. Its face turned, and its eyes caught the reflection of his headlight. They were not the yellow or green of a normal animal. They glowed a deep, malevolent red. The man swerved, screaming. and the figure finally broke away, disappearing into the blackness. He drove until sunrise, never stopping. The sheer impossible speed and the glowing red eyes, hallmarks of a predator with no need for a natural form. Account 2. The Mimic and the Voice. The Skinwalker's most insidious weapon is its ability to lure you out into the dark. If you are safe inside your home, they will try to trick you into opening the door. A young woman, let's call her Sarah, was alone in her family's remote home on the reservation one evening. Around 1 a.m., she was startled by a frantic tapping at her back window. It was aggressive and sharp. She froze, then the tapping stopped. A second later, she heard it, the distinct sound of her father's voice, muffled right outside her door.
Sarah, Sarah, let me in. I can't find my keys. It's freezing out here. Hurry.
A wave of immediate relief washed over her, but then a cold dread set in. Her father was over 100 miles away on business, and he never drove. She had spoken to him hours ago. She moved silently to the peephole, her heart hammering. The porch light was on. She saw a tall, hulking shadow press against the door, too big to be her father. As she watched, the shadow shifted, and she saw a pair of yellow-white eyes looking directly into the peephole. Not a glance, but a direct, unsettling stare. Then the voice changed, dropping its pleading tone and becoming a guttural, scraping whisper, still using her father's voice.
I know you're in there, Sarah. Open up. It will be quicker if you just let me in.
Sarah didn't move until the morning. Sun hit the window. When she finally opened the door, there were claw marks scraped deep into the heavy wooden frame. Account 3. The Unnatural Beast. Not all sightings are prolonged chases or psychological warfare. Sometimes the horror is in the glimpse, the sight of something that is fundamentally wrong. Two brothers were driving home after a late night of work. They were exhausted and not paying much attention to the deserted landscape until their headlights caught a figure near an overpass. It looked like a large dog or a wolf, but it was standing on two legs, not sitting, but standing, almost casually, leaning against a concrete pillar. As they slowed down, the creature turned its head. It had the snout of an animal, but its arms, which hung low, had what they described as human-like hands, long, slender, with unnatural joints. The moment the light hit it, it didn't run like a normal animal. It moved with a horrifying, rocking horse gait, a swift, inhuman lurch, and quickly ducked out of the sight of behind the pillar. One brother slammed on the brakes, thinking he had hit something. They backed up, heartbeats pounding. There was nothing. No animals, no tracks. Just a deep sense of wrongness where a bipedal, unnatural hybrid had just been watching them. Account 4. The Unblinking Stare. Our next account comes from the infamous property of Skinwalker Ranch, a location so riddled with weird accounts that it became a global hub for the unexplained. The initial owners, the Sherman family, and the investigative team experienced things they defy all logic. This particular account focuses on a chillingly humanoid encounter. It was March 12, 1997. The ranch had been purchased by the aerospace mogul Robert Bigelow, and a team of scientific investigators was monitoring the property. One of the lead researchers, Dr. Colm Kelleher, was on site. Around midnight, Kelleher and another team member noticed a shape high up in a cottonwood tree about 50 feet away. It was large, too large to be any creature, any natural creature, that is. It was an unnervingly still humanoid figure, perched 20 feet off the ground. Kelleher used a spotlight on the figure. What he saw was a creature described as large, lying motionless almost casually in the tree. The most horrifying detail? The penetrating yellow light of its unblinking eyes. It wasn't observing them like an animal. It was staring with a cold, focused malice. The eyes were fixed on the light, fixed on the humans. It was prolonged, silent confrontation that spoke of ancient intelligence and threat. Fearing for their safety, Kelleher fired a rifle at the creature. The bullet struck the trunk right below it, and the figure immediately dropped from the tree and vanished into the darkness. When the team later investigated the area, they found massive claw marks and imprints on the ground that defied identification. Too heavy for a bird, too large and strange for a known predator animal. They only found evidence of something impossibly heavy that was gone without a trace. Account 5. the dog that isn't a dog. Many Skinwalker accounts featured the creature in its familiar forms, coyotes or wolves, but sometimes they adopt a shape that is just wrong enough to alert the victim. This story involves a creature that looked like a dog, but with deeply unsettling anomalies. This account is from a family living in a rural area bordering the reservation. It was a clear, cold night. The father of the family was out by his porch late, packing up some equipment, when he heard an odd sound, a deep, wheezing cough, almost human. He looked towards the nearby dry creek bed. Standing there was what looked like a large, lean dog, perhaps a mix of a coyote and a German shepherd, but his posture was off. It was too tall, and its limbs were too long. As it stepped out from the shadows, the porch light caught it. The creature looked like a dog, but its front paws were clearly articulated like human hands or feet, long and capable of grasping. But the worst part was the head. It had a dog's body, but the head was too large, too round, and its eyes were huge, unnervingly bright white, fixed directly on the man. It wasn't snarling or showing teeth. It was just looking with profound, silent awareness. The man, paralyzed with fear, couldn't move. The creature didn't move towards him either. Instead, it suddenly dashed away with impossible speed, lurching and spraying towards the creek. It moved like a nightmare, a mix of canine speed with a disturbing, disjointed gait. The man retreated inside, knowing instinctively that what he had just seen was not merely an animal, but an intelligence wearing the skin of one. Account 6. The Voices in the Dark. The psychological warfare waged by a skinwalker can be more terrifying than a physical attack. When a predator knows it can't get to you, it will often try to break your mind. Terry Sherman, the original owner of Skinwalker Ranch, provided an account of this unnerving pressure. One night, soon after the Sherman family moved to the ranch, Terry was out walking his dogs. It was a calm night until he heard something utterly alien. He heard voices. They were close, he estimated only about 25 feet away, but he couldn't see anyone or anything. The voices were speaking quickly, in a language he did not recognize, described as a guttural, fast-paced chatter. The dogs, which had initially been running ahead, immediately stopped, whimpered, and tugged their tails, retreating to his side. They were terrified. The voices seemed to be moving in a semicircle around him, too close for comfort, but always remaining invisible in the dark brush. They felt entirely malevolent, surrounding him with a presence he could sense but not see. Terry felt a profound sense of panic, the chilling realization that he was being observed and tormented by an unseen enemy. He rushed back to the house, pulling his panicked dogs behind him. He later described the event as one of the most terrifying of his life, a chilling reminder that the skinwalker doesn't always need to show its form to make its deadly presence known. It just needs to remind you that it's watching, and is communicating in a language you can't understand. Account 7. The Mimicked Lure. The ability to mimic human voices is a hallmark of the skinwalker's terrifying intelligence. They don't just want to scare you, they want to lure you. Our next story comes from a camper whose best friend's voice was used against him. The witness, Jake, was camping with his friend Alex deep in the southwest canyons. They had set up a primitive camp far from any trail. Late one night, Jake was near the fire while Alex was sound asleep in the tent. Jake heard a noise, a low, guttural growl that felt too close to be a normal predator. He froze. Then he heard a voice, distorted and crackling like a broken radio, but undeniably Alex's voice. The voice called out,
"Jake, come help. I need help."
Confused and alarmed, Jake spun around, but the call seemed to come from the opposite direction of the tent. He shone his flashlight towards the sound. Standing on a ridge about 50 yards away was a tall, gaunt figure. It had elongated limbs and moved with a jerky, unnatural rhythm. But when the flashlight beam hit the face, Jake nearly screamed. The figure's face was a muddled gray, skull-like, but it was contorted into a hideous, decaying copy of Alex's face. It called out again, mimicking Alex's voice with the same plea for help. Jake bolted back to the tent, violently waking his friend. They tore down the camp and fled, hearing the voices, sometimes Alex's, sometimes a woman's voice they recognized from a conversation earlier that day, echoing around them as they drove away. The creature wasn't just copying sound, it was stealing identity to create a perfect, terrifying lure. The Skinwalker legend is a fascinating and profoundly frightening piece of cultural folklore. It taps into our deepest fears: the fear of the dark, the fear of betrayal, and the horror of seeing the human form twisted into something monstrous. Whether you believe these accounts are true paranormal encounters, misidentifications, or deep seated cultural warnings, the sheer consistency of the sightings, the glowing eyes, the impossible speed, the malicious mimicry, is undeniably unsettling. But again, we must end where we began. This is a topic that carries immense cultural weight. If you visit these lands, please remember that these stories are not for entertainment to the people who believe in them. Respect the land, respect the culture, and heed the warning. Sometimes it is safer not to look too closely into the darkness. So what do you think? Have you heard other Skinwalker accounts that share these details? Let us know in the comments below, and remember to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the terrifying and unexplained. Stay safe and lock your doors. Bye.